Loki episode 5 is here, and oh my god, what a glorious time it truly was. And I'm so excited to have you guys here with me today discussing this episode 5 in full spoiler detail, because last week's episode was freaking amazing, and this week's episode just keeps building. Next week is the finale, and I cannot wait till next Wednesday, and I'm sure many of you guys are feeling the exact same way right now. If you guys are new here, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep talking movies and all sorts of geeky content over here on a daily basis, as well as comment down below your guys' theories, your thoughts, your favorite Easter egg, your favorite moment in this episode. I want to hear your guys' thoughts, because that's my favorite thing about talking about and just staying up to hear and talk with you guys, because that's why I do these videos. It's just like I'm talking to you right now, and we're just having this great purpose and this great reaction right after watching the episode. And that's the fun aspects, because I see your guys' comments, and you guys comment stuff that I might have missed. And this was a episode that was big proportion, especially last week's end credit scene, which shows Loki ending up in this area where he was purged, pruned, whatever, and it turns out this is a world where everyone goes to. This is just a time part of the world where everything that is ever pruned goes there. And it makes it for a very interesting conversation, because I know there was theories last week was like, okay, is this like his purgatory, or is this just his world with just a bunch of different Lokis? And does that mean Mobius maybe has a world full of different Mobiuses out there? No, it's all in the same world. And I think just kind of starting this episode really much off with everything kind of happening in the TVA is because that's kind of the biggest part of it, and also one of the smaller moments of it all. And then we'll kind of jump into all the Loki. So for the TVA stuff, where it was kind of left off was, of course, Sylvie was going up against Renslayer, all this sorts of things. And the whole entire time I was sitting there, I was like, Sylvie, do not believe this bitch. Renslayer is not the girl you want to believe. She is totally playing everyone in this. She already played everyone before, and she's continuing to play this again. And of course, again, she betrays Sylvie and all that sorts of stuff. Sylvie ends up pruning herself because she wants to find out. She is figuring out that wherever this end of the timeline is, whoever created the TVA, that is where they are. And, you know, as we see at the end of this episode, we get a little bit of a glimpse of where this might be going. But, of course, this is something that she is very hinged on finding out. She is not just going after this because she wants it. She needs this. Her whole entire life was taken away. And it is a very tragic story. Even thinking back, in each and every week, they very much expand on this character in such a new light that it really much just blows my mind. And I really do adore what they were able to do with this character. But even other than that, seeing Renslayer kind of freak out and then going and talk to B-15, the Hunter B-15, and having that conversation where Hunter pretty much, again, tells her that same thing. You want this. She needs it. And Renslayer is pretty much on that end thing. You know, Miss Minutes is going through trying to figure out everything that's going about this. But for me, I still feel like Renslayer has a little bit of an edge. She knows what's going to happen. And I think, if you know the comics, someone that she has a big relationship with is, of course, Kang, who has already been confirmed to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, played by Jonathan Majors. Amazing casting there. And I've been saying, Kang is showing up in this show. I mean, at this point in time, I don't see any other person or any other reason for it to be any other villain who is behind the TV other than Kang. And maybe I'm wrong. You know, I don't like to theorize anymore, because I absolutely got the Mephisto stuff wrong from WandaVision. But there are too many signs pointing towards Kang. And plus, Kang has already been cast in the MCU, so it would make sense if some sort of thing or version of something hinted at him. I do believe that next week we're getting something with him, whether it's his voice, whether it's actually him, whether it's just, hey, this is Kang and I'm feeling it, something of this nature. We are going to see this down the road, and that's what's going to be very fascinating to see, who is in that giant looking castle at the end of this episode. And of course, just everything the TVA is very much coming to a part now, and I'm really loving this whole thing. And of course, Renslayer doesn't prune B-15 because she knows she's just going to go to that world. So of course, with that whole entire nature, when Sylvie prunes herself, she takes the little laptop thing, knowing she can come back or bring people back. And it's a really nice thing, of course. But now let's kind of come back to where we were in last week's episode, when, of course, Loki himself pops up and sees different variants of himself. And that was a fun aspect of this, was seeing all these different variants, seeing how they kind of had these conversations with one another, and like what were their nexus events. You know, of course, the kid, he had ended up killing Thor. The crocodile was really funny, the alligator Loki, which I really dug that. And of course, even going to one of the other Lokis who talked about like, oh yes, I got all the Infinity Stones, I killed Captain America and Iron Man, I defeated them, which like they're all calling their bluff, so we don't really know what he did. But Richard E. Grant was the one that I was really excited about. And while, yes, he perished at the end of this episode, and I was very sad about that because I love Richard E. Grant, and he's such a fascinating actor, and seeing him just play a variant of Loki was also really cool. The thing that I really dug about Richard E. Grant in this episode was the way that he talked. You know, he's seen all that purpose, but instead of dying at the hands of Thanos, he survived that. And for me, that's something that's quite fascinating. Again, seeing where all these characters kind of went and how the different versions. And I think this variant playthrough is going to be very interesting to see how they tie this in to future MCU properties. Of course, you know, we have Spider-Man No Way Home later this year, which I'm assuring that, and really much the way that I'm thinking about it, is people will watch Loki and go and see that are going to be like, okay, well, Toby and Andrew are variants of them, and of course, Tom Holland's kind of a variant of them. Everyone's a variant. I'm sure there's variants of me, and they'll think that I'm a variant of them. And that's going to be something interesting. And then again, the same thing with Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness that I think we're all going to have that fun conversation with. That's going to be the fun key play here. But even seeing all these Lokis interact and having that fun, when we see President Loki or whoever the hell that was finally find them, that action set piece was cool, seeing all the Lokis using their magic against one another. And really much, the thing that we notice is that all of them have some sort of special ability, but reality is they're all the same people. They're all the same person. And in that moment, and in particular, we see how that kind of ties into, like, Loki really much realizes towards the end of this episode that, like, they are stronger than they think. And I think Sylvie even notices in this moment, of course, when she finally reunites with Loki after Mobius saves her in the pizza car, which I was just so happy to see Mobius. You know, I shed some tears last week, but once I saw Loki at the end, I'm like, he's got to be alive. He ends up being... You know, they come up with this game plan that, hey, we're going to take over this cloud, we're going to enchant it, and very much so, turns the car back around, they reunite, and Agent Mobius having the conversation with all the other Lokis, while Loki and Sylvie are having this conversation outside the home. For me, again, the Mobius stuff was great, but it comes back to that core connection between Loki and Sylvie herself, and I think for me, that connection has been the biggest bond, and really much the heart and soul of this entire show. I've always liked the Loki character. I've said this. I think he's one of the most entertaining characters. And again, there is this emotional and sensitive side to him that we get glimpses of throughout the entire MCU. But I think this show really much just paves the way again in doing what these shows have done best. Giving character development to characters who, while we really enjoy and have gotten some minor character development, they have not been the stars yet, the ones who really further develop them. And this is the first time that we're really much getting that in-depth stuff with Loki. And for me, that's some of the stuff that I feel like is so great. And this episode being titled, of course, Journey into Mystery, I think that has more of a meaning, of course, the journey into this mysterious world that Loki's now pruned into, and of course, journey into this cloud thing and what is behind there, and even journey into themselves. I think this is a very much a self-discovery show for both Loki and Sylvie, and again, seeing that bond come together, them kind of being under the blanket, and I just find it really heartwarming. And in a sense, I do want them to end up together. I think their chemistry is like on par with everything. And if it's not a relationship, then at least just a friendship there. I think that's so major. And of course, just seeing how Loki like realizes like, I am such a different person now in my life than I was back in the Avengers. And really much this Loki variant, this one that escaped from, of course, the events of Endgame and the first Avengers, for me, this is a big thing because this is a different version of him that, you know, while we've seen how great a person he can be and how he really much tried to save Thor, you know, this version is that same thing. And I think the character development has grown so well in here that you understand who he is. And again, just that moment between Sylvie and him was really delightful and emotional, and I think it's one of the strongest moments in the series is anytime that they get those conversations. And the fact that next week is the last episode, I'm going in so worried. I do feel like that someone is not going to make it out alive, and that this will end on a very much of a sad note, but at the same time as a dreadful note for what is the future of this show. And I could be completely wrong. I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that one, but it's really emotional. And just again, seeing them kind of go up against that, Richard E. Grant giving his life for them to finish this out. They enchant it, they see the castle, they start walking towards it, and that's where it ends right there. No end credit scene this week. I literally like went through it multiple times. I was like, did I miss anything? Did I not? I was like maybe thinking, oh, Renslayer's gonna beat them there, or Kang, or some sort of nature like that. Nothing like that of that. No end credit scene. Really sad on that, but still, I'm assuming we'll probably get one next week as well. It's just very exciting to see where this entire show is going. And again, I'm making bets. Kang is next week. If you guys think it's someone else, please let me know down below. I have no possible idea to see who could be else behind this, and it's just going to be exciting. Plus, I'm assuming next week Mobius will be burning down the TVA, which is just freaking awesome to hear him say how he's flipping sides, and I've just loved Owen Wilson in the show as well. I hope he ends up surviving. As a little big of a peek, though, there was one Easter egg I did catch, and I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts if you got this. There's a thing in the comics called Thanos' helicopter, and you literally see it towards one of the back halves of this, and I'm wondering how many other things were hidden in the background. I saw the Avengers Tower at one point. I think we saw a little bit of that last week, and just a couple other things I'm totally spacing on, but the Thanos copter, I was like, you guys did it. You guys did it. Other than that, guys, this was a phenomenal episode of Loki. I loved episode 5. I think, again, this show is just continuing to get better and better. This is my favorite MCU show at this point. As long as the finale hits it, I will think this is overall a stronger show than WandaVision, which was my previous favorite. And when it comes down to the whole entire MCU itself, this is one of my favorite things that they have ever done yet. I am so excited to see next week's episode, and I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts down below. So thank you once again for clicking on these. Guys are seriously all the best. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And of course, until next time, stay classy.